In II, one very notable thing is Fan and Test Tube's relationship. Since around the middle of Season 2, they've developed such a strong bond and genuinely care so much for one another. You can also very much see that within the II fandom and various fan arts and fan media people have made of them. There are a lot. You can honestly say there's too much, honestly, as literally any time you were to step foot in the II fandom and wanted to see content related to Fan or Test Tube, separate or together, more than half of what you're gonna get will just be of their ship. It's gotten to the point where literally all anyone can see of Fan and Test Tube is just their ship and that's it. When people mention Fan or Test Tube, they only talk about them or see them in the context of shipping as Fantube. Obviously, shipping is harmless fun. Hell, I was a huge shipper, especially in the II fandom when I was younger. And I'll be honest and say that people who feel the need to just dog on and rat out people for harmlessly shipping two fictional characters and doing their own thing, calling them cringe or whatever, is just pathetic. What is reasonable is to step in and maybe say something is when people take their shipping too far, to the point they feel the need to force their headcanons and beliefs and whatnot onto everyone in the sense that that's how you must see it. And if you don't agree with their ship or want to view it as a different way, you're warranted for harassment and other nasty treatment. This is what I mean. I feel like this has happened way too many times with the ship Fantube and the II fandom. Fan and Test Tube's relationship in canon is not romantic. They are not a canon couple, and neither is them parenting Bot strictly make them a romantic family dynamic either. Way too many people have wanted to stay and spread around that Fantube is canon, and because of that, therefore, everyone else must see it as so and has to ship it. Somebody will make ship art of Test Tube or Fan with anyone other than each other, and oftentimes somebody will always feel the need to butt in and go, you can't do that because Fantube is canon, so... It's gotten to the point where people literally harass and bully others just for not wanting to see Fantube romantically or having their own opinions. Even by proxy, people try to falsely state that Bot is canonically a minor simply because they refer to Test Tube and Fan as their parents. None of them have canon ages, and if it were implied, they would at the very least be adults. On the topic of Bot, it's also just really strange that when their whole reveal was first brought up, everyone was more than willing to see them, Fan, and Test Tube as happily married family, when literally in the show itself it's hinted that Bot still holds some resentment for what happened to them. Bot was created as an android replica of Bo, a dead person, that which Fan and Test Tube never even had ties with. But because of Fan's coding and how he was made to adore and love, especially within the context of inanimate insanity, that's what led to Bot's creation. And how they felt that they never therefore could have a body or a choice of their own. And yet all people were willing to see is just a watered down nuclear family dynamic, which honestly completely brushes aside how Fan and Test Tube are actually shown to each other in canon. Their relationship is shown to be codependent of one another almost to an unhealthy extent. Fan is already shown to be attached to Test Tube, very much so, and they definitely bounce off of each other. Test Tube herself, she's almost afraid to have her own choices or actions because she's afraid of pushing Fan away and hurting him, as was in Season 2, Episode 13. What happened then, and then following Episode 14, pained Test Tube to figure that out, because of what happened, and that's why she merely goes along with Fan, how we see now, because she's scared of repeating that pattern again. That's further straightened by the fact that they're deemed socially outcasted from the others and just seen as, just awkward. And that's another thing that brings them so closely together. Their relationship in the show is something that already exists, yes. I will say, they do love each other. And love isn't always strictly romantic. So why does the fandom feel the need that them becoming a romantic couple, or even insisting they currently are, is something that needs to happen and be explicitly stated? Why do they need a love confession scene, or anything that's just honestly not like them, to happen to satisfy everyone and make the show complete, when just how they are now is enough? Why does the fandom need to be so amatonormative about this? Even Brian has stated in the past livestream that Fan and Test Tube are what they are, and how more canon does the fandom need them to be? On that note too, even after saying that, people felt the need to run around screaming that Brian said Fantube is canon, and furthermore police anyone who otherwise doesn't view them as such. It's just a weird thing I noticed, where I feel like people, judge others in the OSC, their status just on if they ship popular ships like Fantube, and if they don't, they're seen as freaks who need to be shut away in the community. Going back to how I said earlier, I'll see content people made of Fan or Test Tube featuring one of them, and then alongside with anyone other than each other. And then people will say things along the lines of, oh, I think this would be better if Test Tube and Fan were with Fan and Test Tube and not this character. Why do you feel the need to say that? People will search the creator to see if they're a Fantube shipper, and then they're all like, oh, it's okay, they're a Fantube shipper, so this gets a pass. Okay, and what if they didn't? And kind of just going on a tangent by proxy, I feel like this could also be said about Lightbrush, another extremely popular ship in the fandom. And furthermore, how the fandom can only perceive Paintbrush and Lightbulb as their ship and pass on their dumbed down, completely disregarded characters as what is canon. That made me want to add one more thing, honestly, that I remember during when they were first coming out with the season 1 remastered episodes, and it was apparent that people were genuinely going after Jazzy Oliver, Paintbrush's voice actor, because they believed somehow that Jazzy was putting their biases into the show and making Lightbulb and Paintbrush's new interactions as ship bait, and that somehow hinting at them, trying to make them become canon. No, that's just dumb. It would make sense for the I team to start making Lightbulb and Paintbrush interact, because that we can then, it makes sense. It's like a leeway for how they become close in present day. But that doesn't mean it's a strictly romantic thing once again. Why do you people always have to make it as such? Just to put on a closing note, not everybody needs to see Fantube, and honestly Lightbrush too, as romantically canon, and they do not need to become one either, like how Paper and OJ are. Paper and OJ's relationship is an entirely separate thing from what the Lightbrush and Fantube duos have. They don't need to become canon, and people do not need to see them as such, because, just like what Ryan said, and honestly, what I also said too, moments ago, that they are how they are now. They genuinely care for one another, and I think that really is just all they need. And they do not need to be all romantic, lovey-dovey, have a big confession scene. So please stop dumbing them down as that being all they are. And yes, I know it's Adam's show, and he can do what he wants, but I can also have my own thoughts and say-sos as a viewer of the show. And even if Adam were to canonize Lightbrush and Fantube after all, that doesn't mean I have to agree with it or like it too, and neither does anybody else. I will still stand by everything I've just rambled on about.